Hey everybody, how you doing today? Welcome to this week's episode of The Issues. I'm Dave Epstein, and we're going to be talking about what goes on around the GTA, focusing predominantly on Toronto and around the world. First of all, I want to talk about Sarah Palin's lamestream media, and what it's also known as is the court of public opinion. And the reason for this is it allows people to sort of get an idea of what's going on in the world without actually having to go to each individual place in the world. Now, if we're talking about the U.S. and or North America would probably be a better way to say it, is you'll see that in the Western world, the media either has a one or other sort of point of view. And what I mean by that is people say that the media or a press organization would either be conservative or liberal, or in the U.S. it would be Democratic or Republican. Now, what this means is that rather than you, the viewer or the person watching the news program, getting the full-fledged truth of information forthcoming to you, instead what you actually have is you have a opinion-based news organization giving you their point of view on what actually happened in the world that day or with that particular issue. And now what I want to focus on here is the Zimmerman trial, or what's going on in the Sanford, Florida regarding this, because we'll also touch quickly on something else, but we might do that later in the show. So what I'm talking about here is a neighborhood watchman shot a kid after he went to the store to grab a Arizona iced tea and a bag of Skittles. Now, some people are saying that the press ended up publishing a picture of this boy who looked like he was 8 years old. He was very young, when in fact he was a 6'7", African American, and you wouldn't have known he was a child. If you saw him in a hoodie from behind, you would have imagined that this was a full-grown adult. Now, people are saying because of this sort of misinterpretation, that maybe that there's other misinterpretations. But what we have to focus here is when this boy went to the store and bought the Skittles, he paid for his Skittles and he paid for his drink. And when he was walking home, I don't think anybody has the right to say to any American or Canadian or anybody for that matter, unless you're living in a dictatorship, what are you doing on a public street walking down it? So what we have to focus here is this 15-year-old boy who might have been 6'3" or whatever was shot in the back. And whether or not he wore a hoodie and that was a mistake, when you're 15 years old, you should have the opportunity to make mistakes. When you're a grown man, part of the neighborhood watch, I don't know if it's so important for you to be walking around with a firearm, and that's a mistake that he made. So let's look at it like this, okay? Leading up to the incident with Trayvon Martin committed 0 criminal acts, okay? Leading up to the action with George Zimmerman, he caused a few criminal acts, from anything from carrying a firearm to disobeying the 911 officer's call. So when you hear stuff on the press or on the radio or on television, remember, it's very important that you take this information and you take it with a grain of salt.
Hello and thanks for watching. We hope you are enjoying this week's show. If you or someone you know has something to talk about and would like to get it out, come on an episode of The Issues. Please call or email the number on the screen. Once more, thanks for tuning in this week, and we hope to see you next time.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning back in. Now I want to talk about entertainment. We're going to quickly touch on the Miss Canada, Miss Universe sort of thing, because the first transgender Miss Universe contestant unfortunately came out, I believe, 7th or 8th and got the position of Miss Congeniality, which means hopefully she'll be starring in the next movie with Sandra Bullock. But being serious about this for a second, I want to quickly just say what she accomplished and what she did was amazing, and I hope it brings attention to the plight of people who are suffering with sexual indifference, who don't or are unfamiliar or uncurious or don't exactly know who they are, and hopefully it gives them the strength to sort of understand what they are, who they are, and what they can potentially do with their life should they have the motivation that's required. Now, we're going to step away from this. Let's quickly talk about The Dictator, because a new movie in theaters just came out. Sacha Baron Cohen, I believe his name. Movie was funny. Not just what you see in the previews. There's a lot going on in this movie. I suggest you go out and see it, provided you have a sense of humor. If you don't, you might gain one from going to this movie. So get out there, and there's still a lot to come out. I'm going to be doing a review every week, but without giving too much information. This was a good one. If you like comedies, it's funny right through. Go and see it. All right, last off in the entertainment sort of area, I want to quickly touch on food again, because we're going to do a little review of a place to get lunch in Toronto right now. It's called the Black Camel. Now, if you want a sandwich and you want a consistently delicious sandwich, this is the place to go. I'm not going to tell you to get the chicken. I'm not going to tell you to get the beef. I'm not going to tell you to get the pork. All of these sandwiches are delicious. Make sure when you get there, you go up to the person behind the counter, and it's not wrong to say, what do you suggest? I feel like chicken. What do you want to put on it? But Black Camel, great place to get a sandwich.
Hello and thanks for watching. We hope you are enjoying this week's show. If you or someone you know has something to talk about and would like to get it out, come on an episode of The Issues. Please call or email the number on the screen. Once more, thanks for tuning in this week, and we hope to see you next time.
Welcome back again, everybody. Now I want to talk about our home city of Toronto and what's basically going on. So first of all, about a week ago, the Pan Am Games, which are coming here in 2015, or the city of Toronto announced the venues for all of the sporting events. And it's going to be basically dispersed amongst the entire GTA. And that's going to be great for everybody, because hopefully in your hometown, in your backyard, you'll at least get to be part of it or take part of it. And if you're not interested in it, unfortunately, traffic is going to greatly increase to your neighborhood. Moving on, it seems that we might be eligible for the Expo 2025. It's a ways away. It's more than 10 years away, but it could be a lot of fun. We've had 2 of these in Canada before, but it's been, I believe, since the 60s since we've had the last one, so it'd be nice to get another one of those in the GTA, or at least the first one in the GTA, so you bring even more attention to our city and hopefully help increase tourism over the next few years. Now, in council over the last couple of days, they've been talking about a rule that says that in the city of Toronto, you can't play street hockey. Now, in our city, the sport of street hockey is very popular. Actually, the sport of hockey, period, in Canada is probably the most overwhelming sport in Canada since we've changed our national pastime sport from lacrosse to hockey. I believe now it's actually both, but it's basically they're trying to change the rules a little so that this ban on hockey is lifted. Now, what I wanted to focus on here is who plays hockey on the street. Typically, it's children, and when these children don't have an opportunity to play a sport on the street, what opportunity or options do they have? And the truth of the matter is they don't have any. Kids can't really go to your city councilor, they can't vote, they can't do anything about it. So it's really up for the parents to get out there and make sure that they know, or they tell their counselors, they tell their school trustees, if you don't want kids playing hockey on the street, let's build skating rinks or at least places that are accessible for children in the school parking lots, in the school playgrounds, and so on, so that kids are off the street and they actually have an option. Because just saying no doesn't really solve anything. We have to provide alternative measures so that people can still enjoy their lives while we still protect safety.
Hello and thanks for watching. We hope you are enjoying this week's show. If you or someone you know has something to talk about and would like to get it out, come on an episode of The Issues. Please call or email the number on the screen. Once more, thanks for tuning in this week, and we hope to see you next time.
All right, everybody, this is the part that's most important to me. We're talking about the entire province of Ontario, which basically is the government organization that has the most to do with your everyday life, as they mandate down to the cities, and as well as they listen to the Fed and tell what they do and so on. But let's move on to talk about why the budget is stalled in Queen's Park right now. And the reason for this is, well, the NDP abstained from voting, the Conservatives voted against it, and the Liberals voted for it. Now, they're having all kinds of problems, and one of the problems I'd imagine, I'm not 100% familiar with the information, I've just been reading the news that's coming out, but one of the problems I'd imagine that they're suffering from there is getting this 2% increase on the 500,000 plus makers, because it is actually a problem. It's illegal for them to do this. They have to slightly alter laws in order to make it happen. Now, what I wanted to touch on here is the Canadian Charter, because the Canadian Charter and Section 15.1 says we all should be treated equally, period. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're of this race, that race, have this disability or that disability. Financials have nothing to do with it. So what I'm trying to get on here is it's already been decided that the income tax rates in Ontario, Canada, whatever, are what they are, and they've gone through their sort of legislation in order to be put in place. But what I want to focus on here is this 2% on the rich is sort of a they're putting it to the man in a sense. And what I mean by this is rather than saying everybody across the board has to pay a 2% increase in their taxes for a debt reconsolidation fund to go towards Ontario's debt, I think most people would be like, okay, you know, this money is going to save our children's future. That's not the worst thing. But to totally focus this energy on a select few that make a certain amount of money is just, it's unfair, to be honest with you. And it just seems like that's going to lead to a lot of problems down the road at Queen's Park. Now, another thing I wanted to touch on is a Conservative member of provincial parliament out on the west end of Ontario left the Conservative Party and joined the Liberal Party, not as a member of provincial parliament, however, but as a minister on a board or whatever. I'm not going to get into full details with this. But what this does mean is that voting at Queen's Park is going to be obscure for the next little bit until this seat gets filled. Now, the Liberals obviously want to fill this seat with a Liberal. The Conservatives obviously want to refill the seat with a Conservative. But I want to talk about the NDP because I went on the NDP's website and I was looking around, and what I saw was a message from the leader of the NDP party asking that people basically donate $200,000 to her party to ensure that she can get someone to run in that seat and have the possibility of winning. Now, what I want to talk about here is Andrea Horwath and her party had the opportunity to vote down the budget and ultimately force us to go back to the polls to vote again. So lack there of doing that has led to the situation we're in right now, where if Dalton McGuinty can stuff enough money in that seat and make enough promises for the people for that seat, he might actually get a Liberal majority, which means for the next 4 years, we're going to have the Liberal government again, and basically the NDP and the Conservative are not going to have an opportunity to have their voice heard. So did Andrea Horwath make the right choice? Only time will tell. But truly, as people that voted NDP, look at this for the future, because you got to sit there and think, do you want a leader that's going to lead, or they want a leader that's going to follow? Because right now it seems like the NDP party is just following in the Liberals' footsteps.
Hello and thanks for watching. We hope you are enjoying this week's show. If you or someone you know has something to talk about and would like to get it out, come on an episode of The Issues. Please call or email the number on the screen. Once more, thanks for tuning in this week, and we hope to see you next time.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Issues. And now we're going to touch on the final part, which is going to be my favorite part, because we're going to do a little protest extravaganza. And what I mean by that is we're going to quickly talk about the G20. Came out recently in the news that 31 officers are going to suffer disciplinary hearings regarding their actions at the G20. Some of these officers are seniors, some of them are rookies, and so on, but they're pretty much all walks of life. You can find someone that did something wrong at the G20 that was wearing a blue uniform. Now, quickly I want to touch on the officers that committed questionable acts that are now retired. From my understanding, there's 2 of them. How are we going to hold these people to account? I don't know. Now let's focus on everybody for a quick second. All right, so at the G20, we now know 31 officers are suffering disciplinary actions. Another couple of officers, I believe in the Adam Nobody case and so on, are suffering other persecutions against them. What exactly? Hopefully we will find out what they did and what the actions the police are going to do to ensure they're held accountable. But what I also want to talk about is what led up to the G20, because as a person that's had dealings with the police, I'll tell you that the behavior of the police as a whole has actually greatly improved since the G20. They didn't really suffer much scrutiny before that. Following that, I think they've learnt from their actions, and perhaps in the future we will see a better police force because of it. But going before the G20, I think it's important that whoever investigates these 31 officers that committed questionable acts during the G20 look at previous offenses and matters and other things that these officers were involved in. Talk to previous witnesses, talk to previous people that were charged by these officers. You have to look at even their record of people they've charged and charges that have been withdrawn. And we have to overwhelmingly look at the history of these particular officers to make sure that this was a one-time incident. And if it was a one-time incident, a slap on the wrist in most cases is probably acceptable. But should these officers have a history of committing questionable acts while wearing a uniform that the uniform is supposed to be to protect and serve the people, I think it's very important that we focus on that history and make sure for the first time ever, if an officer is warranting to be fired, that the City of Toronto, the Province of Ontario, even the Premier of Ontario or the Prime Minister of Canada should step in and for the first time in history do so. Now, let's talk about Quebec for a second, because there's a protest that's been going on there for the longest in Canadian history. I think it's rolling on to 9 months now. And basically what's going on there is these people are arguing, saying, we don't want to pay for our university education anymore. And I'm not going to say that I'm against that. I like the Netherlands idea of providing education to people who want it. And given the fact that Canada is going into such a significant amount of debt, both on a provincial level through the provinces, all but Alberta basically, and are we talking federally, in the Canadian market, we're now $550+ billion in debt. The way the government raises revenue is through taxing, and the only way that we will be able to make this money back in our future is by ensuring that the next workforce has the high-paying jobs, and Canadians in the future overwhelmingly have the paying jobs required in order to tax them such a ridiculous amount that they can that they can pay off the debt that we're bringing on right now. Now, this is not going to be an easy fight for these Quebecers, but they have actually developed quite a significant amount of support. And this is where we're going to go back to the beginning of this report where I talked about the lamestream media. Now, some people are saying that these guys in Quebec, oh my God, they're just crying, whining crybabies who want everything in life for free. But the truth of the matter is these are the people that are going to have to deal with the problems put forward by the people that left them today. And an education is something that we shouldn't be so negative about as a media or press or as a people. People wanting to better themselves is something that we should actually encourage. And the fact of the matter is other places in the world provide education for their people. So why here in Canada, where we're one of the highest tax nations in the world, can we not do that? I don't know, but I'm sure over the next few months with this protesting obviously continuing, we're going to find out. Now, last off, I want to talk about what's going on tonight in Toronto at 5 p.m. I believe it's at City Hall. Could be at Queen's Park, but I'm not positive. Check the website to find out. I will put a link right down here somewhere. And basically, there's the Slut Walk. And this is basically a walk that started about a year ago for a Toronto police officer, went to U of T and basically told a girl that if she didn't want to get raped, don't dress like a slut. Now, these girls put together this walk to Toronto Police Headquarters and protest victimizing victims. I'm a huge supporter of this. Some people don't agree with what they're doing, but you have to look at it not from just the name and the title of the Slut Walk, because obviously that's not the most appealing title ever. We have to look at this from an overwhelming stance as, do we want people to go and report to the police that they were sexually assaulted? Do we want people to report crimes? Do we want people to do these things? And the overwhelming answer is yes. If you've been sexually assaulted, you shouldn't have to be concerned about going to the police and having them treating you like you were at fault when you were actually the victim. So this is something that hopefully will continue to keep the accountability in the police, keep the police going on this up and up matter where their sort of overall performance is improving. Now, the problem, I'm going to quickly just step on this because it has nothing to do with protesting, is the problem is crime in Canada, or Toronto more so, is increasing. And there's obviously some sort of problem with the way we're policing if we can't keep these sort of crimes under wraps. But gun violence is up significantly in our city. And I don't know what the proper action is to solve it, but the problem that we have right now is no one's actually talking about how do we solve it. Everybody's just talking about how to keep their jobs. This is Dave Epstein, and I hope to see you next week on this issue or that issue of The Issues.